Everybody, welcome to Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. We are live here today to help you with your nutrition questions. If you missed Tuesday's show on L-Arginine, I highly encourage you to go back and watch it. We talked a lot about arginine's impact on multiple systems in the body, and we're going to be taking Q&A today on arginine as a priority, but other nutrition questions as we get arginine questions answered. So let's dive into your questions. Let's see. Friends without borders. How do you take arginine and lysine together? Sorry about that tech issue. How do you take lysine and arginine together to reduce the potential possibility? So we talked in Monday's show about how if you take high doses of lysine and you have a history of fever blisters, or aphthous ulcers or canker sores, that too much arginine could actually trigger, the recurrence of those types of problems because it can activate and feed herpes virus. And so kind of the antidote to that is to take lysine together. So how do you take them together? Well, you take them together simultaneously. They're going to compete a little bit for absorption, but ideally what you can also do is you can take your dose of arginine and then several hours later take your dose of lysine so that you're getting them both in on a daily basis so that there's a counterbalance. We don't want to deplete lysine with high dose arginine leading to viral outbreaks. So you can split the doses over the course of the day and take them in separate doses and still get both of them in, and that can still be effective and helpful. Let's see, Dr. Brian, I don't know who that is, had mentioned that the arginine pathway was less effective in nitric oxide creation as you get older. Are all the benefits of arginine affected or just nitric oxide creation? I wouldn't agree with that statement. Age is not a determinant of effectiveness of nitric oxide creation. What happens as people get older typically is not age, it's accumulation of damage over time. And so one of the things that we know can dramatically affect arginine conversion into nitric oxide is high blood sugar or unregulated or uncontrolled blood sugar. And so, in the US, it's estimated that, 60 to 80% of the population is overweight and has blood sugar control issues. And so that happens as we age. I would suspect it has more to do with that and not necessarily a byproduct of aging. That being said, we try not to blame aging on physiological defects, and always keep that in mind because it has less to do with aging and more with damage accumulation over time. Bad habits accumulated over time equates to bad physiology, and that's not aging, folks. That's just a change in behavior that needs to be made. Good questions. Hi, Dr. Osborne. Thanks so much for your advice last time regarding my elevation of liver enzymes. I don't see a question there. Let's move on. A few years ago, okay, here we go. A few years ago, sorry, there's a lot of misspelling in this question. Maybe it's from Timeless Fit for Body and Mind. Maybe condense that question, and check your spelling errors because it's really hard for me to make that out. Okay, Melinda says, arginine helps with nitric oxide in blood vessels and thereby blood pressure. Can it also help with heart rate? Yeah, I mean, if your blood pressure is higher, your heart rate sometimes has to go up to compensate for that lack of oxygen, lack of oxygenated blood flow. So it certainly could affect heart rate. Let's see, arginine helps with oxidative stress in the brain and neuroinflammation. Does it help with neuroplasticity? I haven't seen any research that confirms that that's how arginine works as far as neuroplasticity is concerned. That's not to say it couldn't. I just can't pull any scientific rigor from research that would make that claim. Are there any other nutrients that are more helpful for neuroplasticity? Well, I would say the most important nutrients for neuroplasticity are number one, eating whole, real food that's nutrient dense and complex in nature. Because there's a lot we don't know about the brain, but we know there's a lot of nutrients from food, even ones non-discovered at this point, that have tremendous impact on regulating inflammation. And neuroplasticity, or lack thereof, is actually a byproduct of inflammation and lack of use. So that brings us to a couple of other things. You should, as a person, if you're trying to enhance neuroplasticity, you should be learning every day. You should be expanding your knowledge, expanding your brain, exercising it, and exercising and challenging yourself intellectually. That's one fantastic way to improve neuroplasticity. Beyond that, I would put in nutrient category, B vitamins are a must, B12 specifically and especially, but also vitamin B1 and vitamin B5, vitamin B2 and 3. I would also put folate in that category. I'd put omega-3 fatty acids in that category of essentiality for neuroplasticity. I would put choline, which is not fully scientifically agreed upon, but it's like a B vitamin. And it's very important for the generation of acetylcholine, which is a primary neurochemical that allows brain cells to communicate and grow and repair. So those are all nutrients I would put high in the category of supporting helpful and healthy neuroplasticity. Let's see. If my blood sugar goes up to 9, but then morning falls to 2, and my cortisol is very low under high stress, is that a thyroid issue? It's not possible really to answer that question from the data that you provided. I mean, if your blood sugar is high in the morning, you could be having what's called a dawn phenomena, which is an elevation of blood sugar due to cortisol from waking. It's possible you could have a thyroid issue, but again, that data doesn't really help me. That you've given me doesn't really help me make that determination. Let's see here. 20 years and still not optimal on thyroid meds. Elevated free T3, starts at low doses with full symptoms. Working on gut liver, no grain, no pain. A question mold. Any supplements that would help hormone metabolism? I mean, there's a lot. If you're talking about thyroid hormone, I mean, first and foremost, there's the nutrients that are necessary to produce thyroid hormone, and that would be, starting with tyrosine, the amino acid, but also looking at iodine and vitamin B2 and vitamin C and iron and magnesium and vitamin B12, all critical for thyroid hormone production. And then you have thyroid hormone regulation. So, to regulate the proper balance of thyroid hormone between T4, T3, and thyroid hormone activation in the cell, you need things like omega-3, and you need vitamin D and vitamin A. So if you haven't already, I would highly encourage you to watch my thyroid crash course, where I do a deep dive on all the nutrient relationships between proper metabolism and thyroid hormone. I think that would probably give you a lot more comprehensive, detailed information to follow up with your doctor on. Let's see here. Can arginine increase growth hormone? There's some preliminary data that says that it can. So, I mean, the best way to know is an N equals 1, right? It's not potentially harmful to take arginine. One of the questions there's several questions that were coming in from the show Tuesday, and one of them was, can I take arginine if I have kidney disease, like chronic kidney disease? Is that dangerous? And the answer is no. As a matter of fact, chronic kidney disease is one of the reasons why a lot of people develop high blood pressure. And so arginine, in its role with nitric oxide, has been shown in human studies to reduce both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. I think a lot of the preliminary data shows that 5 points on the top and 5 points on the bottom reduction overall. So there's no threat to your kidneys to use L-Arginine. But of course, always get with your doctor when you're making these kinds of decisions. Do I believe that having HDL above 100 is negative? Not really. I'm not really a big fan of even investigating cholesterol with any. I think we lack great clarity medically on the impact of cholesterol across the board of the lifespan of people. And I think, the last 50 plus years of damning cholesterol for being evil is going to turn out to be wrong. Already really is, but I think the rest of the world is just catching up to that. But as far as HDL is concerned, I haven't seen anything that would make me think it's super negative. Now, there is one element that we sometimes see, and that's when a person is in mold. A lot of times we'll see their cholesterol climbing quite high, both HDL and LDL. And it's, can sometimes be used, I'd say, as a weak surrogate identifier of the possibility that you might be being exposed to environmental mold. Lori's asking, is this safe or necessary if I'm already taking your amino acids? You mean high doses of arginine? It just depends, Lori. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't necessarily need, if you're taking my amino acid formula, you don't necessarily need more arginine, unless, where I would put a person on more arginine in my practice would be if somebody was testing low in arginine, in which case I would potentially add that into the mix to support that person. With ALS, daytime fatigue, ALS, I assume you mean amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease. Daytime fatigue is a big problem. Despite having regular 8-hour per night bed schedule, suggestions or solutions, get tested, Jim. Micronutrient testing, vitamins and minerals can have a tremendous impact on energy. And if you're deficient, you definitely would want to get correction in place for those types of things. Is it okay to take lysine and arginine together at the same time? Yes, it's perfectly fine. Now, remember, they do compete for absorption, and so you can take them at the same time. A lot of foods contain both of them as well, so it's not something that you're going to be wasting your time doing. But more ideally, you would take them at separate times. Are there benefits to testing OH, vitamin D, and active vitamin D? Probably the bigger benefit would be in testing OHD. Now, you can test them both. You can test both OHD as well as 125 OHD. But as a general rule of thumb, if we look at medical literature around vitamin D and the benefits of vitamin D supplementation on certain conditions, autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and inflammation, the better marker to be measuring is 25 OHD. That being said, you can certainly also test 125 as well. And then sometimes people have liver or kidney dysfunction, because if you understand vitamin D physiology, vitamin D is generally it's produced by cholesterol from your skin when UV light hits your skin, and then that cholesterol, vitamin D, travels to the liver to be converted, and then it travels to the kidney again to be further converted. And so if you have liver or kidney chronic diseases, that can affect how your body metabolizes your vitamin D. Hemoglobin A1C is 6.1, even though fasting glucose is 87 and insulin is 2.4. There are some things that can affect hemoglobin A1C and kind of create false positive high. And so that may be something that you'd want to consider. Because if your fasting glucose is consistently below 90, that's actually quite good. And if your insulin's below 5, fasting insulin, that's also actually quite good. And then triglycerides at 43 is fantastic. So I would be less concerned overall because there are things that can affect or impact the hemoglobin A1C test. It's not a definitive perfect test, even though it's what a lot of doctors are using nowadays to measure blood sugar averages over time. I mean, it's a helpful test, but no one singular test in this regard should trump any other, and they should all be looked at under the context of the individual. The other thing I might consider if you were concerned about being pre-diabetic or diabetic would be how fast are you healing, as an example. What does your energy look like? Do you have discoloration or dark discoloration in the folds of your skins on your elbows or behind your neck? These are all other types of physical signs of diabetes as well, or blood sugar dysregulation as well. You might also get your cortisol levels checked, because low levels of cortisol can also contribute to kind of a misleading representation. Let's see here. Is there a link between arginine, growth hormone, and wrist pain, tenosynovitis, de Quervain's? Not really. If you struggle with tenosynovitis and it's not going away, even though you're resting the wrist, I'd probably look more toward nutritional deficiency or food-induced inflammation. We see a lot of kind of recurring tendinopathies and inflammation in people who are eating poor diets or inflammatory diets. So I don't know if you've read No Grain, No Pain, but you might consider doing that and following that diet and I've seen cases of de Quervain's go away with just simple diet change. I've also seen cases where people had omega-3, vitamin C deficiencies, and so their ability to heal and repair from that inflammation is somewhat inhibited or limited. Janet, remind me, what you said your cat's doing better. So which change was that? Remind me, because if I asked you to come back and give me an update on your cat, was it that you fed your cat or gave your cat arginine? Help me remember that. Should we expect arginine supplementation to encourage smoldering viral infections to flare? So if you are taking high doses of L-Arginine and you have a history of viral issues like shingles or herpes, you definitely want to approach arginine with a little bit more caution. And I would highly recommend that you use lysine as a tool simultaneously if you're considering using arginine. What do I think about BPC 157, the peptide? I think BPC 157 orally, so like taking oral pills, oral peptides, I think oral peptides are overrated, honestly. I think especially in healthy people, maybe not so much in obese or sick people. Some people get some benefit from oral peptide therapy, but if you are generally a healthy person trying to heal faster after workouts and that kind of thing, and you're taking an oral peptide, you're probably spending more money than what you should. We haven't really seen it be all that clinically effective for people. That's at least my experience. Now, injectable peptide is a little bit different. Those are generally tend to be more effective. So if you're doing, injectables, that there may be some enhanced benefit there. But as far as heart health is concerned, in what way, density? Because there's a lot of different ways that the heart could be impacted. And so if you have a specific condition in mind, that's always helpful. Is it safe to take L-Arginine with your blood pressure medicine at the same time? It depends, Christina. I would look at your medication and see what is the recommendation for how you take it. If the recommendation is to take it on an empty stomach, then follow that recommendation. If there's a non-recommendation in that regard, with or without food, there's not really a problem taking it with arginine. Now, the problem would come in, let's say you have the medicine you're using to lower your blood pressure, and then you take L-Arginine or start taking L-Arginine, and it lowers your blood pressure further. Is it possible you could push your blood pressure too low, and then now you're tired and lethargic? Yeah, it is. And this is why, if you're going to use arginine at those higher doses to try to see if it impacts your blood pressure in a beneficial way, be aware, monitor your blood pressure, talk with your doctor about it, so that you have good guidance as you try to navigate it. Because what you don't want is you don't want to drop your blood pressure so low that you pass out. And I've seen that happen where people are taking multiple supplements and they're taking medications and they're not monitoring, their blood pressure, and they're just pumping high doses of things that we know can lower blood pressure, like magnesium and CoQ10 and arginine. And then what ends up happening is the medicine, it becomes too strong and the blood pressure goes too low. So it's always a good idea to approach it slowly, approach it with caution and measure. And if you've got a good doctor, work with that doctor. Even if they're not maybe seeing 100% eye to eye on nutrition, keep them in the loop and let them know. And that way, if you have to make a quick phone call because your pressure is dropping too low and you need a medication adjustment, doctor's aware of what you're doing, and you can hopefully get that done with less, with less complaint. Is L-citrulline better than L-Arginine? No. I've seen citrulline do well as well also, and it's also true in the research. If you use citrulline, does it convert to arginine and subsequently nitric oxide? The answer is yes, and studies have confirmed that. Where citrulline would work probably less effectively would be in a diabetic, as opposed to a non-diabetic. But pound for pound in healthy people, they both work, and you can take either one. If a friend was kicked in the head years ago and still has chronic daily migraine, can you still address traumatic brain injury? So I would, first of all, I would say, I don't ever like to make assumptions when people say I was kicked in the head and I have migraines and I still have migraines and it was years ago. My question is, are you having migraines because you were kicked in the head, or are you having migraines because of accumulation of your behaviors being at odds with your body? And so it's hard to say for sure. But as far as traumatic brain injury, I mean, you can do a lot for it, but it's a tough question to answer because without an MRI and without blood parameters to look at inflammatory markers and other things that might indicate a persistent chronic inflammation, it's hard to say for sure. But I mean, I don't believe in a situation where the body can't heal. I mean, there are certainly severe traumatic situations where the body won't heal to where it was prior to the injury. But as a general rule of thumb, if we're talking about chronic persistent inflammation through lifestyle behavior, that can all be changed and is typically very easy to reverse. Let's see. Carolina says, I wanted to take the test for vitamin deficiency, but couldn't have it done because I have low white blood cells. Do you recommend anything to be able to have this test done? Yeah, absolutely. So three things, actually. Number one, I highly recommend, if that's your case, take Ultra Nutrients. This is our multivitamin, multi-mineral. A lot of times the B vitamins in that product will help support better production of white blood cells. Number two, and in the amount I would recommend be 4 capsules a day. Number two, take L-glutamine, 2 grams a day, and do that for about 3 weeks. L-glutamine is the natural fuel source for white blood cells. It's what they use for their energy substrate. So a lot of times people with L-glutamine deficiencies will have a hard time producing adequate white blood cells. And then number three, you could, instead of just giving 1 vial of blood, give 2 vials of blood for the test. And you can reach out to customer service and request additional vial, because if you have a low white count, sometimes we draw more blood and we get more white blood cells and the test can be run. So all three of those things can help you get a viable response and test result back. My blood pressure in the morning drops to, your blood pressure drops to 2. I don't understand how blood pressure drops to 2, Maria. Do you mean your blood sugar? And if your blood sugar's at a 2, that's dangerously low. I don't know if there's a language gap barrier or maybe just some typos. I know sometimes when you're trying to punch in questions on a phone, it can auto spell things in a way you didn't intend. I like this comment. So Anisha says, I think my omega-3 has helped tremendously for my neck pain, wrist, also stretching and watching how I sit at the computer. Yeah, definitely. I mean, omega-3s are super powerful anti-inflammatories, and head-to-head studies in humans comparing omega-3 to non-steroidal anti-inflammatories show omega-3 to be as effective of a pain relief So I don't doubt your experience, Anisha. Thanks for sharing. If only does only diet and supplementation help me fix my blood sugar, and how long does it take? So I mean, diet's a huge part of blood sugar. Exercise is a big part of it. Malnutrition, chromium deficiency, magnesium, zinc deficiency are all tremendous contributors to blood sugar issues. And all of those things in context need to be addressed ideally simultaneously. Maria, have you watched my show on blood sugar, how to fix blood sugar naturally? We have a whole crash course on it, and I would strongly encourage you to watch that. Just go to our YouTube archive and watch that show, because I think there's a lot for you to unpack there and take away as benefit. Can people with cancer take arginine? Yes and no. It depends. This is one of those where it's not a simple answer that all people with cancer shouldn't take arginine or all people with cancer should. Depends on the type of cancer and depends on why you would want to be using it. Um, so it's really hard to answer that question definitively with just such a limited scope of knowledge. I had lysine and arginine that expired 4 years ago. Is that still viable? Probably not. Amino acids do break down over time, and the stability, shelf life stability for most products, I think in the U.S. anyway, is 2 years. So amino acids not something if it's 4 years old. I wouldn't risk it. It's not a super expensive type of supplementation to do. So it's just, to me, it wouldn't be worth the risk of taking a bad product. Though LDL is good, lipoprotein A is high. That's super high, 1287. Is it possibly a nutrient deficiency? We don't know about LDL or lipoprotein A. Nobody knows that it's a nutrition deficiency per se, but what we do know from some of the good work of Linus Pauling is if you take high doses of vitamin C and high doses of L-lysine, and that generally is in the neighborhood of 5 grams of both per day, that in many cases it will drop the LPA tremendously. No drug that we know of will lower LPA. It's a genetic marker as far as we know. And that may change down the road as we learn more about it. But we do know lysine and vitamin C in higher doses will reduce it. I always have a headache every morning. I don't know what to do. Would you recommend me anything like a vitamin? I'd recommend getting it checked out. If you have a headache every morning when you wake up, I mean, there's a lot of things that could be. It could be the way that you sleep, the positioning of your pillow. It could be that that your neck isn't supported as you lie down, and so you wake up with muscles that have been fighting against you all night, and that's the reason for your headache. It could be that your blood sugar's too low. It could be just a number of different factors, Carolina. So get with a knowledgeable doc to help you to determine that the why. A good physical examination might help elude some abnormalities in muscles or joint structures in your head or your neck or spine. There's just a lot of potential reasons why that could be the case. My friend is fighting flu for 3 weeks and the bronchitis is getting worse. Her doctor gave her antibiotics. Depends. So your question is what's the best thing to give her to recover faster? Is it bacterial bronchitis? Is it viral bronchitis? Is it potentially fungal bronchitis? That's the job of the doctor. Let your friend know that she should be asking her doctor those questions. What's the source of the bronchitis? Is it environmental? You can be breathing in bad, unclean air. It triggers inflammation in the lungs. You could have an infection, and so an antibiotic is generally what doctors lean toward. But did they do a culture on your friend? And that's something else. Like, to me, a culture would be a smart thing to recommend, and that way, culture is going to tell the difference between bacterial, fungal, viral, etc., possibly the source of the bronchitis, because it's hard to say for sure. Now, if you just want to do some things naturally to support the lungs, one of the best things to take is N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams a day, and vitamin C as well, to bowel tolerance, but most people can tolerate up to 5 grams a day pretty easy. But those would be two things just, nutritionally that can be done that aren't dangerous, that may be very helpful. But I'd say figure out where it's coming from. Oh, so here going back to the cat. Janet said, I changed my cat's diet to grain-free based on the response to kidney questions. She acts better. Tests are worse, but last test was before meal change. Vet can't relieve diarrhea. Any suggestions? Ask your vet about a probiotic, or check out some of these natural vets. I think Karen Becker is one of the good ones to go and look up. She has a lot of information about. She's a veterinarian, so she's got a lot of information about pets. But I've given my animals probiotics numerous times where diarrhea was an issue. So, and usually it tends to work pretty well. All right. Can arginine help with swelling in the legs and feet? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on whether or not that swelling is as a result of blood flow restriction. If it's blood flow restriction, it might be helpful. If it's being caused by mold exposure, you got to get out of the mold. Elevation of the feet can also be helpful in that regard. Getting investigated to make sure you don't have congestive heart failure as well. We're seeing a lot of that these days since the pandemic. And then also, nutrients like vitamin B1 and CoQ10 deficiencies and magnesium deficiencies can sometimes contribute to swelling in the lower extremities. So all things to think about, Kersey. Family members have sleep apnea and dislike CPAP. Are there more natural approaches to sleep apnea? Yeah, tons of them, but you have to figure out why they're struggling. So there's a lot of reasons why somebody could develop a sleep apnea issue, but one of the biggest is diet. Eating the wrong inflammatory diet can reduce the airways and create snoring and sleep apnea. And I've seen that for many people. I've seen them get rid of their CPAP machines after their diet change. So diet is definitely a possibility of approach. You might also look into this really good book by an author by the name of James Nestor called Breathe. And it talks about how to retrain your airway, how to retrain your breathing in order to improve, things like sleep apnea. So that might also be an avenue of benefit or help. Can arginine help cholesterol of 650? Probably. I haven't seen it be super helpful for arginine, or rather for cholesterol, Gail. So it's not something I would generally recommend. What is a good omega-3? Go check out our Ultra Omega at Gluten Free Society. That's the brand that I would recommend. It's a fantastic brand. It comes with lipase, which is the enzyme that helps to digest fat as well. So for those of you that maybe don't have a gallbladder or have fat malabsorption problems, that particular omega-3 is one of the best in that regard. Let's see here. I'll throw a link up for you on that, and you can go check it out. Let's see here. Severe sinusitis, bronchitis, red spots on skin. That sounds like mold to me. Sinusitis mold is a very common trigger of bronchitis and sinusitis, but also red spots on the skin. A lot of times those red spots are cherry angiomas, or what are called cherry angiomas, and they can be caused by especially one particular type of mold toxin called zearalenone, or Zea for short. But it's an estrogen mimicking mold toxin, and so it's notorious for contributing to that skin uh, that skin issue. Mm. Is it true that a low 25-OHD vitamin D will show a high active vitamin D? No, and I don't disagree with what you were told, in that the 125 vitamin D tests are it's pretty true that they're not super accurate as a means to try to assess vitamin D levels. Um, so I don't know if I answered your question there or not. I'm relatively new here. Do you cover topics like depression? Nora's asking. Yeah, we have a whole show on depression and anxiety, Nora, and mental disease. You should check that out. It's in our YouTube archives. If you look up in my channel library under crash courses, we've got, gosh, hundreds of them at this point that you can tap into and get educated with. Can nursing moms take in an NMN? If you're referring to the analog of vitamin B3, I don't know that there's ever been any nursing trials, long-term trials on that, but I mean, it's basically it's a form of vitamin B3, and so I wouldn't suspect that there would be any real concern for major risk. But everyone's unique and different, so um, you have to keep that in mind as well. My pulse, no, let's see here. Is L-threonine effective for improving cognition after traumatic brain injury? Can be. I've seen L-threonine be decently effective in that way, but I would, more specifically, I would probably be using high doses of omega-3 in a situation like that, up to 8-10 grams a day, concentrated EPA DHA. With 5 grams of lysine and vitamin C that you mentioned earlier, does arginine level need to be increased for balance? I suggest that any of you doing high doses of nutrition of any kind, long term, over long periods of time, get your nutrition levels tested periodically. When we work with people, we test their levels every 6 months, and that's just to make sure that that we're keeping them balanced. You don't want to, sometimes you're trying to help yourself because you learned something, and then taking high doses of something maybe creates a balance somewhere else. And so monitoring that can be extremely helpful and highly recommended overall if you're not doing that. Now, some doctors are nutritionally literate and others are not at all nutritionally literate. So if you're doing that kind of thing, if you good for you if you have a nutritionally um, educated doctor, but you know, uh, otherwise, I just suggest you get your levels tested. I'm going to put a link in the feed here for you guys if you want to read more about nutritional testing. It is a service that we offer at Gluten Free Society, to help people monitor their nutrition and get more accurate on what they need versus trying to kind of speculate what might be helpful. Let's see. I said that lysine and vitamin C can be helpful in reduction of lowering LPA. Um, so LPA. Does taking high protein make skin dry? No. Also, I like this. So also commentary. You advised L-histidine for stomach acid production. It really helped my HCl production. Also vitamin C to control histamine. That's fantastic. Thanks for updating me and sharing that with me. Let's see here. L-citrulline has better bioavailability than L-arginine for nitric oxide production. Then why do you recommend L-arginine? Because when I'm doing things, I like to work with the direct precursor versus the indirect precursor, because with biochemistry, you have a lot of times you have people who have other blocks, who have enzymatic blocks or other metabolic blocks. So if I'm trying to get a direct response from a nutrient, I try to take the quickest, shortest road to get there. And L-citrulline is not the quickest, shortest road to get there. Just left mold exposure for 12 years. Sweat smells like ammonia, as well as I smell ammonia at times. Would amino acids be helpful to support breakdown of ammonia? Now, ammonia typically is a breakdown byproduct of amino acids. I say you just need to be out of the mold long enough and sweat and exercise. The best thing you can do is support yourself with nutrients that aid in the detoxification of mold toxins. So that would be, the B vitamins, the methylated B vitamins, glutathione, vitamin C, and acetylcysteine. Milk thistle can all be helpful in that regard. A good probiotic can be helpful in that regard. So I'm glad you're out of mold. Those of you who aren't aware, if you haven't already looked, or I've kind of been alluding to this over the last, many months. But MoldJack is coming along. So those of you that aren't aware, we're building out one of the world's most comprehensive resources on mold and mold exposure, and we've got a lot of fantastic information there. And we're just building out more and more. So I'm going to put a link there for those of you who suspect you may be in mold. You should go check out MoldJack and read some of our comprehensive information there, and watch some of our comprehensive video breakdowns. Let's see here. I have neurodegenerative disease. Yeah, there's too many typos in that question. It's hard for me to make it out. Referring to olivary. Can you recommend amino acid and micronutrients for studying? Yeah, tyrosine is super good for focus. Phenylalanine can also be good. Just be careful. For some people, it makes them super jittery and can keep them up at night. But as a general rule of thumb, tyrosine would be one of the big ones for enhanced cognitive functionality. As far as micronutrients, I mean, there's a lot of them. B vitamins, got to be at the top of that list. Magnesium and zinc have to be at the top of that list. Omega-3 has to be at the top of that list for their effect on the brain and for their effect on cognition, neurocognition. I have Sjogren's. I was told to stay away from nightshade. Is this true? Should I stay completely away from nightshades? Not really. Some people with Sjogren's do better away from nightshades, but it's not a generalization that we can make, Laura. So, if you don't find that it's particularly helpful being off of them, then, it's not necessarily something you need to worry about. Love this. I love this. Dr. Osborne, I was in your nutrition course at HCC years ago. I'm a PD nurse now in Med Center and Radiology Department. I just wanted to say thank you for your teaching and passion and dedication. Kudos to you. Thank you for sharing. Always love it when an old student comes back and says hi. Congratulations on making it through nursing school as a success. How can my wife raise her estrogen levels? You got to figure out why they're low. There's not one like magic bullet solution to raise estrogen. You know, is she in menopause? Is she in perimenopause? Is she eating well? Does she exercise effectively? Does she get enough sleep? Does she eat enough fat? Is her body fat composition too low? I mean, there's just so much to unpack about estrogen that it's hard to really give you an answer. I know that it's not a complex question, but it is a complex question. But I guess I would say I would start with, in order to properly make estrogen, because the body makes estrogen, but it requires fat. You need a lot of fat to make estrogen, cholesterol specifically, and a lot of people going, you know, low fat, low animal meats, high plant-based diets, low animal-based diets. It's going to affect your ability to make sex steroids like estrogen, because cholesterol is the precursor for, you know, for the building block of estrogen. Now, beyond that, you need B vitamins in big ways, like folate is very important in properly metabolizing estrogen. So in the methylation process of estrogen, you need B vitamins, B12, folate, B6, B2. So those might all be places to start for her. But ultimately, you got to figure out why the estrogen's low. Let's see here. How can I connect with you for consult? Reach out to my office, Simon. I'll put the phone number there in the feed for you. But yeah, just reach out to my office and talk with one of my lovely staff members. Have you ever seen where INA has sufficient vitamin D and blood plasma levels do not? Yeah, all the time. So one of the best way to check vitamin D levels is 25 OHD in the blood, not in the INA. It's one of the few exceptions to intracellular testing. There's a few exceptions when you're looking at intracellular nutrient status, where looking at it in the blood is a better option. And one of those is 25 OHD. Another one is iron. Um, so this is why when somebody comes to me, you know, we run both. We look at both INA levels and we look at serum values for that reason. I have hypothyroid and don't take levo, and now my blood pressure is falling below 90 over 60 every day. I have stopped L-Arginine already from the last 2 to 3 weeks before low blood pressure. How should I fix this? You got to figure out why the blood pressure is dropped. You know, for some people, they don't eat enough protein. Low protein diets can cause a lower blood pressure. For others, it's inadequate activity physically. You know, inactivity can cause both elevations in pressure, but also falls in pressure. Muscle mass and protein have modulatory effects on blood pressure, but you got to figure out what's driving it. If you stopped your thyroid medication cold turkey, I don't even know if you were on it, but some people, when they stop medicine cold turkey, some medicines are not designed to be stopped cold turkey, and you have to do a weaning effect, meaning you have to slowly reduce your dose over time, and you know, ideally you want to do that with your doctor. And because a rapid stop in something could also contribute to a rebound-like effect. Now, let's see here. Oh, another comment on histidine. So that histidine information is like God's gift to me. Thank you so much. 500 milligrams on an empty stomach, and zinc and B complex for stomach acid, and vitamin C for histamine. Very helpful. I'm riddled with cherry angiomas. I had mold behind my headboard and didn't know it. This was years ago. Could I still have mold toxicity? Yeah. I mean, you could leave mold and get into mold. Some people do that. It's a possibility. Certainly, if you suspect it, I put a link up earlier in the feed. Um, Actually, I put it to the website, but let me share that link with you. If you suspect mold, there's really kind of unique symptoms for mold exposure, and so I'm going to put a link up to our quiz. You can consider taking that quiz if you think you might be in mold and you're not quite sure. It's a pretty thorough quiz with a lot of very specific questions designed to help people understand whether or not mold might be underlying their problems. Would it be more beneficial to alternate days or weeks between lysine and arginine? No. Just take them a couple hours apart from each other. You don't have to wait days or weeks. How to deal with osteoporosis after menopause? I mean, there's a lot of things to unpack there. I've got several crash courses on bone health and bone loss that you should probably check out. You know, exercise has got to be on the list of top priorities. Sunshine's got to be on the list of top priorities. Getting the right nutrition has got to be on the list of top priorities, because bone is made from protein and vitamins and minerals. And if you have deficiencies of key bone nutrients, that's not going to be helpful for you. Could celiac perpetuate daily migraines? Yes, absolutely. One of the primary causes of migraine headaches in my career has been gluten sensitivity for people. Remember, gluten's a neurotoxin. A brain toxin can absent headaches like migraine headaches, among others. So, no doubt about it. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so I didn't really talk much about this, but I've seen this question several times in the feed today. Um, does arginine lower blood pressure? Can I take it to lower my blood pressure? Is it safe to take to lower my blood pressure? And the answer simply is it can. It's probably safe. Talk with your doctor, and if you're on blood pressure medications, make sure you're monitoring all of that to ensure that you don't do too good of a job. Let's see here. How can my son lower cholesterol of 650 without statins? He's 39. Does he have familial hypercholesterolemia? I mean, that, because there's that's a pretty high cholesterol level, Gail, and originally statin drugs were designed for those people, because when cholesterol gets that high, there is definitely a risk involved with that. So, if you're trying to lower it with natural things, there's several things that can be done. One would be high doses of omega-3 fatty acids. You could also use niacin. Niacin has been shown to lower cholesterol as well at higher doses. Niacin is vitamin B3, causes a flushing reaction, so a lot of people don't like to use it because of that reaction. But diet change. I don't know where your son's diet is at. Is he following the appropriate diet for his biochemistry? But inflammation can drive up cholesterol, and hidden infection can drive up cholesterol. So there are a number of things that should be investigated with him, in my opinion, that would help give you better insight into how to get that down more. But that's a pretty high level, and look, I'm no fan of pharmaceutical statin medications, but at that level, if he's got genetic familial hypercholesterolemia, there sometimes are indications for it. You just, if that's the path he has to take, you just need to make sure that he's also maintaining his vitamin D and his CoQ10 status to help offset the nutritional deficits caused by statins. Is it good to take L-Arginine with you mean methylene blue? Because I don't think you mean methane blue. Um, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. If you mean methylene blue, I'm not a fan of methylene blue. I think this whole trend of taking a coal tar derived dye, that somehow that's going to improve your health. I think that's a mistake. I think a lot of people are pushing this stuff because they're making money selling it, and they're not thinking about the potential long-term consequences, or they're just thinking about immediate symptom reduction without the wisdom of trying to figure out why the person's having the symptoms in the first place. When you medicate symptoms to suppress your body's alarm systems, you're not serving yourself. You can take drugs, you can take, even you can take supplements, but ultimately all of you should be pursuing the goal of truth, which is, why is my body experiencing this set of symptoms? Because otherwise, anything you do that's not answering the why is a band-aid, and it's not going to serve you at a high level. I have migraines with aura. My doctors, including a neurologist and an ophthalmologist, don't seem to be concerned. Would arginine help prevent them? It might, if part of your trigger is vasoconstriction, meaning if your blood vessels are constricting as a trigger for the migraine. But I always, when I see somebody with migraines, I always default back to diet first. You've got to change diet. There's too much evidence, and there's too much even anecdote on migraine conditions completely reversing with grain-free, gluten-free diets. And so if you haven't entertained No Grain, No Pain yet, strongly encourage you to read my book and give that diet a good try. And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. Now, there are other things that can trigger migraine as well, like vitamin B12 deficiency and magnesium deficiency, vitamin B2, CoQ10. These are all nutrients that are migraine prophylactics when given in higher doses. So those are all options of potential benefit for you as well. Let's see here. My vitamin D was at 23 weeks ago, and doctor has me on 50,000 units a week and 5,000 a day. So how many weird things happening? Was heart flutters, now is just a heaviness on my chest. Will this help? I'm not sure I understand your question. You're saying that taking the vitamin D has created those symptoms, or are you saying that those symptoms existed and your doctor has you on vitamin D, and will that vitamin D potentially help those symptoms? I'm not sure. The wording of that question was a little hard to discern. Okay. Okay, I think we're right up on time here. Right at the hour. So look, I appreciate you all taking part of your Thursday to be with me and to, be part of this community. Our goal has always been to help save lives. Remember, hashtag save 100 million lives. That's our goal. And if you'd like to support our mission, I highly encourage you to come back each week. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday for a live Q&A. And come visit me at glutenfreesociety.org if you're in the market for supplements, if you'd like to pursue testing for gluten or vitamin and mineral deficiencies and want to use our services. We definitely appreciate your patronage, and it's your patronage that keeps our show on the air. So we appreciate all of your wonderful support over the years in helping us do that and bring education to you. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already, and hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, so that we can get more information to you. And if you want to bypass the bleepership of the main channels, make sure you visit me at glutenfreesociety.org and sign up there for our newsletter, where we can freely send you the information that you request, and it doesn't get blocked out. We've had a lot of people reporting lately that when they subscribe to our channels, that it doesn't stick. It goes away, and they don't get our videos even though they're asking for it. So you can always make sure that doesn't happen by being on our email list. Thanks so much. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you back here next Tuesday for Dr. Osborne's Zone. Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.